All right, so this is the lesson on completing the square. It's 1B.7, and we're on to the second part. And the second part is how to solve a quadratic equation if the coefficient of x is not 1. So this time we're looking here, and this front number, you notice, is a 3. All right, so the only thing we need to do to solve an equation that looks like this using completing the square is to get rid of the 3. So we can't have that leading coefficient of 3. So how do we get rid of it? We divide, because this is multiplied by 3. So we're going to divide all the way through by 3. Divide by 3, divide by 3, and divide by 3. So you always divide all the way through, stopping at plus, minus, and equal signs. So 3 over 3 cancels, and we're left with just x squared. Negative 6 over 3 is negative 2x. And 12 over 3 is 4. And nicely, when you divide 0 by 3, you still get 0. All right, so that's the only thing that we have to do that's different on these type of equations. Now we're going to do the exact same thing to complete the square, and we're going to pull out b, which is minus 2, and b over 2, which is negative 2, divided by 2, which is negative 1. Now we have b over 2 squared, which is equal to negative 1 squared, or it's equal to positive 1. So that means I need a positive 1 in this location, and I don't have one. So x squared minus 2x, and we're going to add that positive 1 in here. Well, we'll do the whole equation first. Plus 4 is equal to 0. Let's move the 4 to the other side. And we have x squared minus 2x. There's a space there now. And on this side, we have equal negative 4. And what needs to win that space is this number, b over 2 squared. So we're going to put that in. So we're going to put a positive 1. And we're going to put a positive 1 over here. So this is all the same procedure that we did last time. We now replace this with x plus b over 2. But what's b over 2? It's a negative 1. So minus 1 squared equals, and on this side, we end up with negative 3. All right, so we're going to take the square root of both sides. Again, square root of a negative number, not something we like to look at, but I'm going to write this over to the side. The square root of negative 3 is equal to square root of negative 1 times the square root of 3. But the square root of negative 1 is I. So this is I square roots of 3. All right, so over here, we have just x minus 1. And on this side, we have plus or minus I square roots of 3. I'm going to move the 1 over to the other side by adding 1 to both sides. And now we have what looks like sort of an ugly thing, but it really isn't. It's just we have a positive 1 plus or minus I square roots of 3. And there's our answer. So the only difference between this problem and the last problem that we did on the last video was we needed to divide all the way through by the leading coefficient. So you may have to deal with fractions. So you're going to practice these problems here. Again, getting rid of that coefficient at the front, in this case dividing by negative 3, divide by 2, divide by 6, and divide by 4. Okay, so we're going to move on to another goal of ours, writing quadratic equations in vertex. Just a quick reminder of what vertex form is. It's when you're writing an equation in this form here, where HK is your vertex. So we practiced that earlier. So our goal is to make any equation that's in standard form look like this so that we can find our vertex and very easily plot this. All right, so the difference between what we were doing earlier, we were solving quadratic equations. Now we're just going to convert a parabola into a different form. So how do we go about doing that? We're going to use the exact same procedure, completing the square. So we start off by, I'm going to rewrite this equation because most of us just like to have the y on that side. So x squared minus 8x plus 11 and I'm going to put equals y. Now, we're used to seeing equals 0 in all the practice that we did earlier for solving a quadratic. But I'm going to do the exact same steps. B in this case is -8. B over 2 is half of that, which is -4. And B over 2 squared would be -4 squared, or a positive 16. So that means in this location right here, I want a positive 16, and I don't have one. So I'm going to move that 11 to the other side. -11, -11. Okay, so this looks a little odd because now I have a number next to a y. So we have x squared minus 8x. There should be a number right there. And we have y minus 11. All right, so let's put our b over 2 squared in there. So I'm going to put plus 16. And I'm going to put plus 16 over here. So we're just ignoring that y, just doing the exact same steps we did before. Now this means I can replace this with x minus 4, which is b over 2. And on this side, I have y, and I have minus 11 plus 16 is a positive 5. Now, the only thing I have left to do is to bring that 5 over to the other side. So, x minus 4 squared. If I subtract 5 from both sides, I get minus 5 over here, y. All right, so now that's in vertex form. And very easily, I could plot this. My vertex is the opposite of what's inside the parentheses, so it's a positive 4, and it's a negative 5. So that's my vertex, and that's the vertex form. Okay, so let's look at some examples. So here, those are all pretty straightforward. We're going to do the exact same procedure. When we look at a few here, we notice that leading coefficients now are no longer 1. So I've got a leading coefficient of -1, -1, 3. How do I deal with that? Come here. So it's just these couple in the middle right here. So let's look at this one. What if I practice doing this one? So let's get rid of that negative sign in the front. So that's just going to present a challenge. It's negative x squared minus 14x minus 47 equals y. All right, so first thing I need to do, like we did earlier, leading coefficient is now a -1. So I'm going to divide by -1. Divide by -1. Divide by -1. Over here, I get just plain old x squared, which is nice. This is a positive 14x, and this becomes a positive 47. And the only thing that's sort of a little bit ugly now is that that is a negative y. Okay, everything else is the same though. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to list my b. b is 14. b over 2 is half of that, which is 7. And b over 2 squared is if I square 7, I get 49. So the only problem is I have a 47 here. So I can't have that. So I'm going to do x squared plus 14x. And I'm going to move that 47 to the other side. I have negative y minus 47. So I'm moving it over to this side. Don't skip any steps. That way you can see what you're doing. So in this case, I'm going to add my 49. And I need to add 49 over here. Okay, so now this is a perfect square trinomial. And I can replace it with x plus b over 2. And on this side, I have negative y. If I have a negative 47 and a positive 49, I get a positive 2. Okay, almost done. I need to move that to the other side. And over here, I have parentheses, x plus 7 squared minus 2 equals, I still have that negative y. So I need to get rid of that negative sign on the y. So how do I do that? I'm going to multiply or divide, doesn't matter which, by a -1. Okay, so it doesn't matter which, I can multiply or divide. So let's do divide just because it's easier to see, I think. So I'm going through and, whoops. what just happened to that. All right, so here, if I divide by -1, I end up with a negative x plus 7 squared. If I divide by -1, I end up with a positive 2, and over here I end up with a y. And that's my answer. Okay, so now you have some practice problems to do. Please don't forget to ask questions. You can ask questions of myself or anybody that's in the class that's gone ahead. And have a great day. We'll see you in school.